That's okay. And competence and the choice to increase competence has to deal with focus. You can't focus on very many things at a time. We talked about you're doing a lot of things during a day, and you're gaining 10,000 hours worth of competency in quite a number of things, 20 or 40 things. But you can't do that in 5,000 things. You've got a limit of what you can actually focus on.
Hey there, this is our podcast, Do You Have a Minute?, in which my dad and I dive into deep discussions about both the most profound and most mundane questions of life. While we know we don't have all the answers, probably none of them actually, we are opening our minds to new perspectives, and most importantly, we are having a good time in conversation. Join us as we explore the unknown together.
Hello. Do you have a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we do.
So I had a word I wrote on a paper.
Okay.
And now I picked the paper up. The word says competence.
Oh, competence. That's a good word.
Competence. So, I don't know, we could find out where it came from or what we know about it currently, and then identify what it might have of value.
All right. Competence brings up a few things with me because there are perhaps some people that are in my life or used to be in my life that aren't in my life anymore because I didn't feel they were competent.
Competent enough for to be friends?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can think of at least one boyfriend when I was a teenager who was really just an idiot. Is idiocy an antonym of competent?
Which meaning the same thing?
No, antonym, opposite.
Antonym, an opposite. Well, synonyms the same thing.
Yes.
Well, why would it be opposite? No, an idiot. I would think they're pretty competence. Okay, competence and idiot. Idiot savants are very competent.
Okay, but
in their specific thing. So you could be competent. It's just, if you can call someone an idiot, does that mean you're telling them they have no competence?
Idiot is an interesting word too, because I mean, now that we've said it 3 or 4 times, it sounds like it's not even a word.
What did it mean?
A stupid person, a person of low intelligence.
Incompetent. So I would think incompetent would define those things. That would probably be the same definition.
Okay. Incompetence.
So
is the inability to make sound decisions. So competency is making sound decisions, the ability to make sound decisions. And if someone is an idiot, then they're not making sound decisions. And not only that they're not making them, they don't have the ability to make them. So maybe not, incompetence. Let's just go with that. So this person was incompetent as well as an idiot, I guess. Is perhaps his capacity to make sound decisions was much lower than mine. We were not a good match.
Okay. So the word capacity, and it's not necessarily his capacity, his willingness, his desire.
Possibly due to his community, how he grew up and the people he hung out with.
We've talked in the past about being learning, being on an avenue to learn. I think when we were talking about disappointment, that was, if you're on an avenue to learn, you don't have to be disappointed. You're just taking this next step as something to learn from. So if you're not on that avenue, if you're of the avenue of being self-centered and poor me, or I don't want to do anything, I'm just a mooch on society, that person is incompetent.
Yeah.
They're not making decisions, whether they have the capacity to do it. I think you used the word capacity. Everyone has the capacity. We all have the ability to do it.
Okay. I mean, even those who have limited, I want to say limited capacity, but I mean, that's really the nicest way of saying that they have mental challenges, physical challenges that prevent them.
Why would you be politically correct? Just say what you mean.
Because I don't want to. I don't want to.
You don't want to offend someone who perhaps is mentally challenged.
Yeah. Yeah. And legitimately mentally challenged, not.
Right. And the word retarded in their mental abilities, we're all retarded in some case.
Okay.
We're held back by something.
Uh-huh.
But someone who has a retardation of their mental abilities so much that they don't have the capacity to be competent. That's what you're saying. There's probably people in that realm.
Yeah. Yeah. Children born from an alcoholic mother or from a drug addict mother or with only half a brain. I mean, there's a lot of birth defects that can make it so that you can't be competent in most things. So
Okay.
we're not talking about those people, right? Okay.
Right. We're talking about the 98% of society, and maybe it's 95%, maybe it's 99.8%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. What percent of us
do actually have capacity to be competent and aren't? Well, and not necessarily and aren't 98%.
Talking about competence.
But
and is competence related to that 98%? Let's just say it's 98% and 2%.
okay.
Is competence as judged by the 98%, by the majority or the massive majority? Is that how you judge competence?
Like that's the threshold, is whatever most people are, that's what you determine whether someone is competent or not?
Yeah. Is there an average of competence based on the society you're living in, the community you're a part of? It has a general competence level. To be a part of this community, you've got to have this certain level of competence. Right. We expect things of you. There's expectations, there's desires. You got to fit in a specific way with this group of people in this level of competence. Yeah.
Every community has a level of competence, an expectation of competence from their members. I went to a community band concert last night, and it was amazing. They did so well. It's only their second year as a band, but like they're filled with people who played instruments in college but didn't have anywhere to go after that, I mean, my city has its own community band, and it's very small, but then a new one popped up in the other county, and it's really, really good. I loved it,
So there was a group of people that decided, we play, and let's just find out everyone else who we know can find out who plays. Yes. And see if we want to get together and create a club. The band
director of the college here is the director of this community band, and he said during the concert, he was making announcements or whatever, talking about stuff, and he said, we have a wait list for every instrument here. Everyone wants to come and play with us. It's a large group, and it's going to be really successful, and someday I'm going to play with it. I know it.
You're going to apply, get your name on the list so that you can go to an audition for the community band.
Yes. And I think it will be amazing. It'll be great. But all of those people, all of those musicians wouldn't be there if they were not competent in their playing. I don't think that they would have taken just any clarinetist that maybe could play, so.
Right. Competence, especially since there's a wait list, they can, as a band, as a director or the presidency of the band, can be choosy, selective of what competence level they want to accept in. And they can say, practice a little bit more. Let's give you these things and work on that. Come back and try next year if you'd still like to. We'd love to have you, but we need you to be at this level of competence.
Yeah.
If we're gonna include you, and a band can do that, and it's nice. I guess that's refreshing and odd that a community band, any community project has an excess of people.
Yeah.
Those things don't happen.
Right.
Today.
Isn't it amazing?
It's hard to get people to be there. I mean, you probably know you're part of another band do you have a hard time recruiting volunteers to be a part of the band?
Yeah. We've had years where we were barely meeting our minimum competition numbers, and this year we have excess. We have more than minimum numbers. I mean, you can never have excess. There's no largest bagpipe band that you can have, you know.
Yeah. But you don't have a waiting list for your
No, we
bagpipe
let
band.
everyone
You're
in.
welcoming anybody in.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you don't have a competence level. You'll say you're incompetent. That's great. We're going to start developing your
Yeah.
competence. So that's the purpose of your band. Your organization is to develop competence. Even if you have no idea how to play drums, they'll start you out and show you how to play
Right.
drums.
Now we do have
right?
4 levels of bands in the organization. So people will get sorted into their competency level.
Competence
Yeah.
levels inside the organization. Okay. So maybe that's something the community band may do as well. Get a JV community and a varsity
Person,
community.
perhaps. Yeah.
I'm in a choir in the community I'm in, and has a hard time getting enough people to come in and sing. So consequently, that's why they had me sing in the choir.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
There's not that many people. So they'll take anyone who's willing, and there's not enough willing people. So that's the, and this is rural area. There's not that many people here anyway. So it's not a huge amount of people who used to love to sing in college and they just want to keep singing in a choir. I mean, it's a great experience. It's great. It's fun, and it's a good performance, and we do well. But it'd just be nice to have more people so that you could decide who's going to sing what parts, instead of saying you're one of the 5 people, you're singing these parts. 5 or 6 people in each section.
I think in most communities there is a competency expectation, right? One community I can think of where you would accept someone regardless of their competency is your family, right? You wouldn't kick someone out of your family because they're incompetent.
The tier 1 nuclear family doesn't kick people out based on competence. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And maybe most tier 2 communities also don't do that.
Well, I don't know. I think they would. There are laws against firing someone without cause, without reason. I mean, there are employment laws. There's things that have come into play to say you can't just at will gauge someone as incompetent. You have to prove their incompetence.
Okay.
If you're going to limit them from participating in your tier 2 activity. And that's even with a community band, that have to justify the fact that they felt you're not competent. What do you mean I'm not competent? You guys are discriminatory. I'm going to sue you.
Okay, so
No litigious society.
So yeah, I am wrong with that. Most tier 2 communities could kick you out of their group because of incompetence in some way or another. Maybe I was just thinking of extended family. You don't kick an aunt out because she's incompetent. Your extended family, because it's family, even though it extends into tier 2, your extended family would not have any problem with incompetent people.
I forget the name of the uncle that no one talked about in I can't remember the movie. I won't mention the movie, but you get people that people don't talk about.
Yeah. I'm reading that makes me think of I'm reading Les Miserables with my kid. And
okay. All right.
She's got to read it with me because otherwise it would be completely she's not competent enough to understand the language, how Hugo wrote, And so the first book is all about this bishop which comes into play later in the story, but we're at chapter 8. And we were introduced to the bishop's sister in chapter 1. She's a very important person to him. Finally, in chapter 8, we find out he's got 2 brothers. And that's interesting. It's interesting that Victor Hugo would wait so long to introduce his 2 brothers, but it's really just illustrative of the kind of person this bishop is. That's the whole point of the book anyway, is telling us, building his character, So that, for some reason, that made me think of that.
His sister is closer to him than his brothers are, apparently.
Yes. Well, and she lives with him too. So, but these 2 brothers, so far in the chapter, they're not incompetent. I think maybe he disagrees with one of them because he's a politician, but other than that, is mildly related to what we're talking about. Carry on.
Okay. You might not, well, you would not talk to someone who you feel is incompetent. I mean, if you have a cousin that just is shallow and never talks about anything but football, you're not going to talk to them very long. They're a Rams fan, and Rams fans are weird. I get, in that respect, anyone who has a specific thing. So he's competent. Let's just say it's a Rams fan, competent in Rams football, and wherever Rams are playing now. Where are they playing? Do you happen to know
I am
the city?
incompetent in Rams football.
Right. I don't know. Los Angeles Rams, it used to be. Maybe it still is LA, wherever they are. So, but he's got full competence there. He knows all the players and their coaches and the manager of the team and the owners, and knows who they are and what they do and how they made their money. And, knows everything about it. Full competence in that realm. But he's not someone that anyone else can talk to, because he wears Rams on his shirt sleeves. Like we talked in the past about someone who wears religion on their shirt sleeves. They're fully competent in that religious scheme, but everything is about that. And everything's about the Rams. Everything's about what you have your competence in. It's kind of like the personality tests: red, yellow, white, blue personalities. And you're competent in certain things, and you just have no relation to compassion or to empathy.
Yeah.
Those are easy things for people to drop.
Right. Or
and just not be part.
The 5 love languages, which is supposed to be really helpful, but once you find out that you're not competent in speaking your partner's love language, then it becomes a fight for years.
Well, so you've got to identify. That's why we're talking about competence. Is you can identify where you are. Is that where you will be?
Okay. Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to recognize what more you could be doing.
So what's your goal in relation to personality tests and love languages? For the color code, your goal is to be a rainbow color code, that you can be a director when it's time to be a director. You can be red when it's time to be red, and yellow when it's time to be yellow. But if you feel like you have no characteristics at all of a leader, of a director, of a manager, you have to develop those. You have the opportunity to develop that competence. And should you? So should you try to develop competence?
I think so. I think across the board, universally, everyone should be trying to develop competence in wherever their values are, wherever their priorities are, their deeply held beliefs.
Deeply held beliefs are easy to develop competence in, because that's who you are. What about your shallowly held beliefs? The beliefs that in that notice or book where it says, what would people change about you if they could? So you're identifying that there's something that someone has a concern about, question about.
Yeah, here's another, if you don't mind me going off on another tangent. Here's another thing I was thinking about just yesterday. I was talking to someone, and they were asking if they should change so that their partner is happier with them, if they should be the one to change. And I told them that they should only change if there's things about themselves that they don't like. They shouldn't change for the sake of someone else, I think. And this is what I thought yesterday. Maybe you can convince me otherwise, because the look on your face is suggesting that I'm wrong. But
where is your center? Where is your center in that response?
What do you mean?
Where's the center? Your focus.
Focus yourself.
On yourself. Your focus on yourself. And we've talked about self-focus. When you start self-focusing on, you're the center of the universe. I'll change if I feel like it. I'm the one that's the most important. I'm going to make my decisions. I'm not going to listen to you. And they're not necessarily saying it that way, but that tends to misery.
Okay.
Self-centeredness. So others-centeredness. If you're going to be centered on someone else and you care about them, and we talked about this with other things, I think. But if you care about someone, you want to please them or help them, you still want to have a relationship with them. You want to build a relationship. That relationship has to do with doing things the way they want it done.
Right. If you want a relationship with them. Yes. So let's say you have a habit of picking your nose and they don't like it at all.
Right.
And I think the only reason that you should change it is if you also don't like it. I mean, you want to stay with this person, and perhaps you can convince yourself that you don't like picking your nose. You don't like that you do that because when you do that, it upsets your partner. And so then that's the reason that you should change, is because you don't like that you do that, not because I still want to do this, but I'm not going to because he doesn't want me to do it.
Right. I agree with you in regard to the motivation of it. The motivation has to be framed that way. You can't change someone else. Your partner can't change you based on their desires.
Right.
So they can't desire to change you, and so now you're going to change. That's easy. It's that statement, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion
Yes.
still. So your will has to make the change. So yeah, unless you want to. So the way you said it was kind of a defiant way, as I'm not going to change unless your answer, don't change unless you feel like changing.
Let's see if I actually said it
But
defiantly.
The thing is, don't change until, not unless, but until you feel like changing. And really, the modification that you can't change until you feel like changing. So if you want to change for them, it's never going to work. You can't change for them. You can't change until you feel like changing, till it's your motivation internally.
Yeah.
So I've been dealing with that. I deal with that all the time. But right now, let me give you this. Did I tell you about the milk I'm drinking now?
The mayo milk? You told me about the mayo milk. You tried making milk out of mayonnaise.
The mayonnaise milk. I tried mayonnaise milk. Yeah, I tried mayonnaise. I tried yogurt. So I've tried a few things to make milk out of. But no, this stuff works. And I'm sure I told you. You must have. But instead of cow's milk or goat milk or any milk product.
Okay.
I guess.
Animal milk.
So it's macadamia nut milk, and what is it? Coconut milk. Coconut cream milk. It's the coconut cream in the cans. It's thick. So the thickness of the coconut cream added to the macadamia milk in a proportion, and I'm getting the proportions down right.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's got exactly the same texture of milk, and it has a fairly good aftertaste.
Does it taste like milk?
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't taste like milk. It tastes like coconut when it's done. So it's kind of like drinking a pina colada.
Okay.
I haven't tried putting pineapple in. Maybe you should try putting pineapple in and see how that works.
That'll give it the little bit of tanginess that you get when the milk starts to go sour.
Yeah. Right. So when I started, milk has 12 grams of sugar in it, and this macadamia milk and coconut milk have 0 sugar. So it tasted weird that way. So I'm adding sugar. So I add the 12 grams of sugar, supposedly. Maybe I'm adding more, but I'll get the taste right on the sugar.
You got to
we'll
weigh your sugar on a scale. Make sure that's exactly 12 grams.
Right. So we'll figure that out, but I'm working on that. And I've been told, and I took food sensitivity, that milk, I'm sensitive to milk. And I'm not going to change because some doctor or sensitivity test tells me, I love drinking milk. I'm going to drink milk. We talked about this before. It's something I'm not going to give up.
Right.
Ever. Who cares? I don't feel bad. If it makes my insides not work right, cool, I can live with that. But I decided maybe there is an alternative, and if there's an alternative that I can be comfortable with, and I'm excited about this comfort level of macadamia milk. And maybe we can change it to walnut milk too. Walnut, I'll find some of the other nuts that I'm not sensitive to. Almond milk is proliferous out there everywhere, but I'm a little more sensitive to almonds than the other nuts. So macadamias and walnuts are good. So we've seen walnut milk. I'm going to try some of that, see if I can mix it. Coconuts are fine. So those things I have a low sensitivity to. It says it's healthy for me. Works well. And I made it work. I tried it with cereal yesterday, and the cereal tastes just fine with this milk in it. So there was no difference. I mixed my drink mix, my protein drink mix with it, and I can't tell that it's not milk. And the base of that, the taste still comes through just fine. I did notice chocolate milk. I tried to mix chocolate milk, and chocolate doesn't work in it
You
yet.
can't put chocolate in.
We'll have to figure out how to make
What
chocolate work.
about carob? Have you put carob in it?
No, I haven't tried
Okay.
carob.
You should try that.
Maybe I could try carob. That'll be something to try. But see, there's an excitement. There's a willingness on my side to figure it out. And so I don't have to be badgered by my partner saying, "You're drinking too much milk. Stop buying milk." Don't do that anymore. I just stopped buying it. I'm using this. I'm starting to work out this. And this will cost at least twice as much as a gallon of milk.
I was going to ask about that.
It's going to be more
expensive. That was
expensive.
my next question was how does it compare to cost? Milk is like what?
It's
$4
It's
and
$4.
50 cents.
$4 a quart.
Oh, really?
For the macadamia.
So that's four times as much for the macadamia itself.
Yeah. Just for the macadamia, and then you add the coconut oil, coconut milk. I don't know what the cost is, but the cost isn't the important thing.
Do you think the cost of it will help you drink less? Or are you going to drink your 5 gallons a week no matter what?
No.
And you don't drink 5 gallons a week for sure, like probably maximum
For me,
2 gallons, but
I drink 2 or 3. And actually I'm drinking a half gallon a day still. So I still drink 4 gallons a week. So still a half gallon of what I'm mixing that.
Do you know how much protein you're getting if you drink half a gallon a day? I've been really focused on my protein intake, and half a gallon of milk a day would really cover all of my protein needs, I think.
That's why I was really happy when I had the cow and milking the cow and drinking cow's milk all day long. I didn't have to worry about protein intake or energy. I could live on cow's milk. A human can live on cow's milk.
We talked about that. You need peanut butter as well, I think, or honey or beer.
Okay, something else. Some what do you call those? Flax, some fiber.
You need fiber.
You need some fiber.
Yes, fiber, protein, carbohydrates. Milk gives you all the fat you need too.
Okay. So we were talking about gaining a competence. So I'm gaining a competence in milk production. I used to milk a cow and produce milk that way, and now I'm milking cans and bottles, creating milk.
Macadamia nuts and coconuts.
Yeah. So it's a completely new milk supply, but it's something that I can use. I can drink it.
I would bet you have the equipment in your kitchen to be able to make your own macadamia milk. You could probably get the cost down to just twice as much as cow milk instead of 4 times as much.
Well, macadamia nuts, they're $8 or $10 for a 1 pound box.
Yeah, you'd have to buy them bulk.
They're expensive
from the source, probably
by themselves.
You could grow them. Do you think they grow in your area?
Okay. Oh no, they don't. We don't live in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
We could probably put them in the greenhouse, though. We tried growing macadamia trees in the greenhouse.
Okay. Yeah.
If we heat the greenhouse and keep it going all the time?
Man, that would drive up cost.
But I don't think I need to try that. Yeah. Then I could sell macadamia milk around this community instead of cow's milk.
There you go. People would be shocked.
Yeah. Here, this is my new milk substitute. It's great. Gaining a competence in that. We talked about, you've got to have your own motivation. So that's what got us onto that discussion. I had to get my own motivation. Someone else telling me that I'm sensitive to this doesn't matter. I've got to get my own motivation, my own reasons, and have the willingness to test things out, to try them, to try to replace it, try to change it. And I'm having the time of my life changing it.
Yeah. You're happy to change in this way.
Yeah. Happy to change. And I think you've got to be happy to change if you're going to change anything. That motivation. If you're not happy, you're not motivated for it. So you've got to be motivated to it. Just like understanding.
Let me read to you what I actually said, so that maybe you can think better about how I said
Your text back.
It said, if you change anything, change because you don't like that about yourself. Don't change because they'll be mad if you don't. Same for them. Anything they change needs to be because they don't like that. They don't like that they're like that. You can't make other people change just because you want them to change. It's just, I thought that I said it basically the best way that I could.
Yeah. Can you say it better? Think of a better way to say it. So challenge yourself just right
Just
now
right
with
now.
that text. What could you have said differently than that would have been better? You got to be able to
Something
improve
that
it.
includes happy, be happy to change. Don't change unless you believe
Yeah.
in the change.
So you used the word don't like in there. That was how you were framing it. Your basis was something you don't like. They don't like it. You got to not like it in order to
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah.
So they'd be happier. So if you just change the phrasing to happiness, they'd be happier if you changed it, right? And if you want to be happier with them, you've got to be happy to change
Yeah.
it. If you're not happy to change it, if changing it wouldn't make you happier, you're not going to be motivated to
Yeah.
change it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I think finding a positive way to say it and instead of using negative language, I believe in that. Yes.
And I forgot what word I used that caused you to say I want to use the words because I didn't mean it derogatorily or whatever, demeaning.
Yeah.
I forgot the word.
I think it starts with a D, maybe.
But
Offensively.
whatever it was,
I don't know.
it was a bad way, and you want to be more positive about it. To be more positive about it, using positive words, you're gearing towards your happiness. If you can identify that there's a happy outcome. So what causes motivation?
Motivation to become competent.
To gain competence. What motivates you to gain competence? Because competence takes work.
Competence takes work.
Right. Does it always take work, or sometimes does it just fall on you?
Let's see.
Like your curly hair, for instance. That just fall on you, or does it take work?
It takes work. I had to learn how to manage it.
Even though it's naturally curly, it does take work to be competent in managing it.
Yes. Yeah, it wouldn't.
And my hairdo, it takes work. I've got to cut it more often than I do.
More often than you used to.
Which I don't cut it often enough. No, and it's because it's way too long right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow I've got to manage it.
So.
And I'm incompetent in managing my haircuts.
Are there any examples of, well, I mean, so you're incompetent in managing your haircuts, and so mom has to manage them for you, right?
Right. And now she's refused to manage them for me, and she says, just look like an idiot if you want. Look like an incompetent idiot. That's where that phrase comes back in too. Go ahead. I don't care anymore.
Okay. All right. So can we think of any examples where you don't have to work to gain competency in something? Breathing, probably. You're just good at that.
We're all competent breathers. That's the automatic systems of the body.
However, there are some issues around mouth breathing. You've got to be competently breathing through your nose and keeping your mouth shut while you sleep at night and things like that. Like there's a certain level of breathing that everyone should be reaching for.
There are things you can gain competence even in non-competent required tasks like that, like breathing. Everyone's going to breathe. If you're alive, you're going to breathe. And you don't have to do it any specific way. You could do it just how your body makes you do it. And you can make a lot of noise when you do it, and it will not ruin the breathing. But you can gain more competence in your breathing. There's forms of breathing, 2 breaths in and 1 out, and 4-second and 8-second. And you can breathe with your stomach and not your chest. So, there's all kinds of things to focus on if you want to.
So the base level of breathing requires almost no effort at all.
Right. And maybe the base level of anything. And then you wouldn't say that someone's incompetent at their breathing because they don't know the breathing practices or rituals or whatever, breathing styles.
Yeah, maybe you would say they're ignorant, but not incompetent.
But they're competent to the level they are. But if you're talking to someone who's studied and who's focusing on the breathing, maybe even in the professions, training people how to breathe or how to breathe again after they take a lung machine off or whatever, the doctors, they'll have levels of competence in breathing studies. But the common person is commonly competent. So there's a common competence. Maybe that's it, that you don't have to practice for, you don't have to work for. The common competence. When we gain use of our fingers, we're all competent using our fingers, but we can't twirl a pin. And do you know that trick? People will hold a pen like this and then flip it around their thumb.
Yeah.
Do you know that one?
I've seen that.
Have you ever done it?
Nope.
I've seen people do it, but I've never learned how to do it.
I just tried and I dropped my pen. Where did it go?
Right. My pen's on the ground too. So if you're holding the pen like you're writing it, and then you flip it with your finger, with your middle finger, you flip it around your thumb and grab it with your pointer finger.
Okay. Yes. I mean, I've seen videos
So that's
of that.
the description of it, and it's easy. People who do it, they can do it, and they continue to do it. Just flip it right around and they'll grab it, and it's easy for them because they're competent. We all have competence in how we use our hands, but we don't have competence with the specific things. Or like a magician who can palm a quarter or a dollar or a dove.
Right. You have to work hard to be able to do that.
Yeah, to gain competence of dexterity with your fingers. But we're all competent with our
So
fingers.
literally everything that we do has a competency level. You can be better at everything that you do, but most things that we do, our competency is adequate.
If it's adequate for the community you're in, maybe there's no reason to extend it. Yeah. Everyone could learn how to play the banjo with fingering techniques, but unless you're wanting to be in a community that's going to be an important competence to hold. Or like violin playing. I was thinking about that the other day too, is getting the vibrato on the left hand on the violin. And so I worked with it a little bit last week, but I've been working with it for 10 years and I haven't done it yet. Haven't gotten there, but I got the tips from the people who said this is how you train that skill, that level of competence so that you can vibrato a violin. And one of these days, maybe I'll have it. It'll speed up so that I can actually vibrato. I mean, I can move my hand the direction they tell you to move it, but it's not.
It doesn't sound anything like
yet.
It is meant to.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I'm not competent to try it even on a violin fret.
In front of anyone.
Right. Yeah. So don't ask me.
Okay.
So let's move to where I got this word from. This is How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. So I'm reading How to Read a Book and why that you have to read that book with your daughter, because the language that was used in France and that they translated from is different than we speak today. And so you got to discussing that.
I had to decode the sentences, figure out what they're actually trying to say. I suggested we read the Cliff's Notes version of it, and she said, "What's that?" So I had to decode that too.
Cliff Notes don't exist. And actually, Cliff Notes now, no one has those. You got online reviews. There's other things. Maybe Cliff Notes still exists, but it's certainly not in book form. I mean, everything we have is online. You can look for a review, a quick review of a book. And that's what this How to Read a Book was written in 1940 by Mortimer Adler and then redone in 1973, I think, 77. So he wrote it again. They published this one, 72. But still, 72 is 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago when books were the only thing in the 70s, early 70s. TV was barely starting. You didn't have internet. You had no online anything. There was no digital anything. It was all paper. And so reading a book was the only thing to do. Now reading a book is still important, and it's still the same process, but it's augmented to what we're currently doing. AI can read the book for you and give you its AI synopsis in 10 sentences.
Right.
And so maybe that's the Cliff Notes of today.
Is AI summaries.
Just log on to AI and say, summarize Les Miserables for me. And I'll give you 20 sentences. Use 20 sentences, summarize Les Miserables. They'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Just fine. Within 3 seconds, it'd have it back for you. The statement here is, we must become a nation of truly competent readers, recognizing that all that the word competent implies, nothing less will satisfy the need of the world that is coming. Nothing less will satisfy the needs of the world that is coming. So this is in the 70s. He was thinking about the future.
Okay.
And we're in that future. We're way past what I think he was even thinking about with the AI models and what they can do now. what we're actually working on. But we still have to be truly competent readers with all, that was the question, with all that competence requires. That's why I wanted to talk about this. All that the word competent implies. So what is implied by the word competent?
Yeah. Ability to understand and speak, and like fluency. Fluency could be competent. If you're a fluent reader, you could be a fluent reader of Dogman, but that's not going to help you. Like, does he in this book, does he lay out standards for lowest level of reading someone should have?
Yeah, actually, the reading is divided into two different things. The levels of reading. You've got elementary reading for Dogman,
Okay.
just understanding. Fourth grade language. So there's fourth grade reading, and then 10th grade reading, and then college level reading. So there's three different, that's kind of stages. But the levels of reading are elementary, then inspectional, analytical, and then syntopical. And syntopical reading is the way I've always described reading. That's what I've been talking about for years. I didn't know the name of it, but it's syntopical. It's saying that you're going to look for the same thread in 6 or 8 or 10 books.
Right.
And you're going to match them together, and you're going to merge that and think about what they're saying against each other and for each other. And so you're going to merge that idea, and that's syntopical. Analytical reading is getting into what you actually think, if what they're saying is true and if it's not true, and then what it means to you, what they just told you, whether it's true or not. Inspectional reading, you're just looking to find out what's in the book, what it says.
Okay.
So doing that. And actually, it's not even what it says. That's done. There's a lot more to reading, and it's all designed here in the program. I was surprised how in-depth the program is for how to read a book.
Yeah, I mean, that book you're holding is not a thin book. It's probably a few hundred pages, right?
Yeah, it's probably 420.
Okay.
400 pages. And skimming the book, I mean, reading a book, I've always done that too. You skim the book first. You look at the table of contents to see if it's even worth reading. And if you've read a book, you can read a book without even cracking into it or inspecting it. Maybe the book doesn't deserve inspection. Maybe you can determine that Dogman is not a book that you really want to get into. But maybe like the Far Side comics, right?
Uh-huh.
There are books of the Far Side. Maybe that's a book to get into because they wrote that. Or Doonesbury, who was, political cartoonists. They're displaying messages with their words. They're not just doing what Dogman's doing. I don't know, maybe Dogman has a theme. Does it? I
have noticed the general plot lines in these books kind of follow classic literature. It just touches on it, though it's not exactly the plot, Yeah.
So you can gain, I mean, it's not that there's nothing to gain from a comic style book. Dr. Seuss literature is literature. Dr. Seuss has important things to say, and there are important morals in probably every one of his stories that you can think about. And he says, then when you get to the analytical reading, it's not how fast you read that's important. It's how much you can get out of it. And you might spend a week with it, with a Dr. Seuss novel story.
Yeah.
And touching, kind of like our conversation here, we're just talking about one word, and we can go anywhere with it.
Right.
You can take it anywhere.
Okay. So becoming a competent reader, does he have his own definition of what competent means in there, or is that where he leaves it up to his reader's interpretation?
Yeah. That statement, that's the only time he used the word competent is in the first part there. There's another word that he said, we have to be active or demanding readers.
Okay.
So the next chapter is using active and demanding. A demanding reader is a competent reader. You got to demand something of the books you're getting to. So competence, he said, is upfront, all that it implies. So that in his book, you're supposed to just have your own understanding of what competence is and apply it to reading.
Okay. So I could say I'm a competent reader at the level that I'm at right now, and then just be happy with that.
And most people are happy with that.
Yeah.
And really we talk about the fourth grade, written in fourth grade reading, fourth grade language.
Yeah.
Fourth grade language is just understanding enough vocabulary to get by and to do everything. So that the fourth grade, that's the first elementary reading level that people get to. And he says that's where most people stop. You don't go beyond that. You don't go into inspectional or analytical, and definitely not syntopical.
Right.
You've got to be willing to think a lot to go to the syntopical concept. And then you got 10th grade reading that most people don't get to, that they should. We should all get to a 10th grade reading style, and that's more inspectional and more analytical, that you can read Les Miserables and discuss it, or read the Iliad, read Homer's works too, and understand them.
Yeah.
But it takes a 10th grade level of understanding and analysis ability in order to do that. The fourth grade vocabulary and reading, most people understand that, and that's why people talk that way.
That's why the news is written in that level.
Yeah.
I bet even the Wall Street Journal is written in fourth grade. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fourth grade. They don't write any of those. The Atlantic or the Economist, there's magazines probably that are in a 10th grade level. Scientific journals clearly are 10th grade levels. And maybe some of them, even the scientific journals, are in the college level. Because you can't talk about things in that realm unless you're using all of the words and all of the ideas.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting book. So the competence of the country is generally everyone's on a fourth grade level. There's few people that are illiterate nowadays. So very few unlettered people completely. They can't read anything. So we've gotten the level of competence in the country. There's a level, even like the naturalized citizen. If you're going to be a citizen of the United States, you need to understand English to a certain degree and be competent to that level of understanding road markers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could probably live here and perhaps be a citizen, but still not be able to get your driver's license. You have to be competent enough to understand those for your license. I've never looked into the naturalization laws, so what do you know about them?
I think there are tests of English, of understanding the language well enough to get by, a fourth grade language vocabulary ability.
Yeah, I mean, that is our country's official language, even though
Right.
what they say, most people that live in America don't speak English as their native language, their first language.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think.
But if you want to be a U.S. citizen, you've got to have, and I don't know, I haven't looked into the naturalization requirements lately either on what it takes, but I would think that that's part of it.
You would hope. You would hope that that's part of it.
I would hope it is. What's the other thing about competence?
So what would happen, what do you imagine would happen in Mortimer Adler's future if people weren't competent readers? Is that happening now? We don't have, I mean, the majority of people aren't competent readers at a 10th grade level.
Right. And I think that's where you run into people. Like we've got a relative who said, I don't like your conversations because they're just over my head.
Yeah.
You live in that world. And he's not a dumb guy. I'm surprised. It's intelligent. He knows what he's doing, but he says, I don't want to think that hard about listening to a podcast or a radio program or anything. You know, he listens to music and loves music. And you get people that just love music and you love a light, funny type thing. I can enjoy Seinfeld or something funny, but I can't enjoy something that's going to cause me to analyze anything or make me think. I don't want to think. I don't want to have to think.
Yeah, for some reason that hurts people's brains to have to think hard.
Yeah.
They get headaches.
And why? So
it's probably the way they're holding their eyebrows while they're trying to think. You know, that's all of the stress around their skull.
Because they have to get that attitude of thinking.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the pointing to their temple all the time that causes the headaches. I had a new thought. Poking themselves in the head. Could be anything. But I think people are happy to just skate by life, to skate. What else do you call it?
Float down the river of life
Float
instead
down
of
the river.
swimming down.
Instead of paddling, instead of getting a paddle or using a motor or doing anything else, you're just floating through life. They're the mooching side. If someone's going to do something for me, I'm going to let them. That's just fine. I don't need to clean my sidewalk. They'll come up and clean it. If the neighbors want it clean, they'll clean it. I'm not going to shovel my walk.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely not going to shovel anyone else's walk. Yeah, I mean they're stupid coming over shoveling my walk, but the snow, and if it snows, and I've done that before. I've been in a home that I just didn't want to shovel the sidewalk, so I walked over the snow all winter. It was okay with me.
Uh-huh.
You make your path through it, and it gets more, and you just build the path up so you walk higher. You don't have to shovel everything you walk on.
It's just for the safety of people that walk past your house. I think I have to shovel. I feel a responsibility to shovel my walks, because if I didn't, then the school kids who walk past will slip and fall, and they're probably going to, I believe it's written in the city code that the walks in front of your house have to be cleared.
They're your responsibility as the homeowner.
Yeah.
You got to salt them, and especially where you're on the hill, you don't want any ice to cause someone to crack their skull on your driveway.
Yeah, even though that would make a hilarious video, watching everybody slide down the hill on my sidewalk.
Yeah. Well, hilarious or bloody, one or the other.
People would watch it, regardless of whether there's blood or not.
Right. And I'm sure you'll have cars slide down, and that's probably going to be just as fun watching the icy roads at some point. So that's why you got to make sure that you get your cars up off the street so that anyone else comes by doesn't run into yours.
Yes. I had my mailbox post set into the concrete about a foot and a half maybe. Yeah, so that when someone hits it with their car, it won't get dislodged. It'll be there.
And is it metal?
No, it's a 6-inch wood post.
6-inch square. Okay. So it might survive, but I think it's right next to the telephone pole too, right? I mean, you're pretty close to the telephone pole. So they're going to hit that and the telephone pole. Hopefully they'll hit the telephone pole before your mailbox, and it stops
They've
them.
already hit the telephone pole. So that's already been hit. That they had to redo all the wires because of that last year, but
Oh, wow. So people enjoy their level of competence too. You'd get to a level that you say, I'm adequate. We talked about that a little bit. Yeah. I'm adequate for what I'm doing. And I do that too. In music, I'm a musician, but I'm no musician. I play the organ. But the only reason, and I tell people this, the only reason I can play the organ is because I don't care if I make mistakes. I'm okay. I'm okay with the level of competence I'm at. I'm not trying to be the paid-for organist that earns his money or has to compete for the position. I'm not going to compete for any playing position.
Right.
So
you can be happy with where you're at. I don't like being at a mediocre level in basically anything that I'm trying to gain a higher competency in. I don't want to be mediocre. So my level of adequacy is a little bit higher than that. I think, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to take it like specifically this hobby or that task or whatever. But
as to whether you would do it in public.
Right. Whether I would do this in public or not. So where was I going? The adequacy and mediocrity. However, if it feels like I'm at a plateau where I'm not getting any better at something, then maybe I would change my thinking about it and be like, you know what, this is good enough. I thought that I wanted to be better at this, but actually mediocrity is an okay place to be in this thing.
In mediocrity, the most famous statement of that is Salieri with Mozart, in my mind anyway.
Okay.
In Mozart, where Salieri said, "Mediocrities of the world, I salute you," because he was trying. He was the court composer. He was trying to be the best that he could be, and at his best, he was mediocre in relation to Mozart.
Right.
When you have excellence there and genius, you're not going to be able to, even with all your study and all your work, his whole life work. But at the beginning of that movie, it's kind of, he's playing pieces, and he says, then he starts playing something else, and he says, "You've heard this. This I made this, and I created this." He was in an old folks' home, and he says, "Maybe you've heard this." And he plays a piece. He says, "Oh yeah, I heard that. I know that." He says, "That's
Uh-huh.
Mozart."
That's Mozart. That's not mine.
Yeah. You never heard anything that the court composer, that the professional did, but you know all the stuff that this genius did.
Right.
The natural competence. And so that, competence, Mozart had a talent. Michael Jordan, they talk about, he had the innate ability, what do you call it? In basketball, he was an innate ability to play basketball, a talent for it, whatever it is. There's another word. I don't recall.
Okay.
But even though you have
Predisposition.
the talent for it, full basketball talent and common sense, you're not going to hit the level that Michael Jordan hit unless you practice 10 hours a day every day.
Yeah.
So you still have to work at it. Usain Bolt, and I was impressed by this. It was probably 10 years ago when he was running, or 8 or 6. I don't know when he was running. But when he took over and he beat the whole field by yards in a 100-yard dash, the documentary on his life showed how much he practiced. He was practicing 8 or 10 hours a day and running and pushing himself. And he didn't just have that natural ability, natural talent. He had that, but you work on it to gain world-class, gain full competence. So, and maybe that world-class competence, Michael Jordan, Mozart, Usain Bolt, they gained world-class competence. They're world-known, world-renowned for their competence. And other people maybe just are happy that they won their race this week.
Yeah, there's a certain level of innate ability that you need to have, but then to become anything, like once you have that, to become anything more than mediocre, you need to put in the hard work. What is that fake statistic that they say? There's success is 10% talent and 90% hard work or something like that. Whatever it is, it's illuminating. It's yeah, you have a little bit of talent, but that's not going to get you anywhere. It'll help, but it's not going to do the work for you.
Yeah. And yeah, you got to keep working at it. And you don't necessarily go straight up. I mean, that's why whatever you reach plateaus that you can't seem to extend beyond. I'm working on a plateau, but you have to keep working through that plateau period so that you can get to the next progress, where you say, I don't seem to be getting any better. I'm practicing, working on this vibrato thing, and I can't get any better with it. Well, it's just because you're on a plateau for 4 years. Get off that plateau. If you work on it enough, you'll get off the plateau and actually move to something that you can use.
Yeah.
But you got to keep working through the time frame. That 10,000 hours. Jim Collins, or who was it that came up with that? Was it Jim? 10,000 hours to competence.
Wasn't there some
mastery?
Will Buffett? What is his name?
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Wasn't it a Warren Buffett thing talking to his airline pilot?
No, he was. Yeah, that's not 10,000 hours. That's what you're going to prioritize. That's prioritizing things. So with his airline pilot, what are the 25 things you're going to do, and then identify the top thing, and maybe order the top 5. These are the ones you're going to work on this year. What are you going to do with the other 20 things? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You don't even.
I don't care
them.
about those anymore.
You let go of those. And there's another thing. This Alex Hormozy, he's the one I sent you that video. The CEO talking about what you focus on. I believe I
Yes, I'm
sent you to that.
remembering this.
He's got curly hairs. He's got a big afro type hairdo.
Okay.
But he's talking business. He says you need to pick your focus on one thing, and then everything else you let those fires burn. You don't even pay attention to them. Any other fires or problems you have in your organization, the one thing that's important, do that one thing, get it done, and put everyone's work on it, and let every other fire burn. It's by the time you've solved that, chances are these other fires will become irrelevant. You won't even worry about them, because you've solved the big thing, the important thing. So that was Warren Buffett's thing. So that's a completely different line of thought.
Okay. 10,000 hours. Where did that come from?
10,000 Hours to Excellence. I think it is Jim Collins in his book. What was the book? His primary one, the main one?
Good to
or
Great.
First one? Good to Great.
Was it Good to Great?
Yeah, Good to Great. It takes 10,000 hours to get to mastery, I think is what it was. And 10,000 hours is 8 hours a day for 10 years, for 5 years. Is it 5 years? 8 hours a day times
365.
20 times 12, 1,900 a year. So that's 5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
2,000 hours a year, roughly 2,000 hours a year. So 5 years full time on something, and you got 10,000 hours. But what the next logical point to that with competency, you're developing competence with that 10,000 hours. You got to do many of those in succession. So you're not just going to get competent at one thing. You're not going to become an organ player and learn the organ, and you're going to do 10,000 hours on organ playing, and that's all you do that year. You're doing that while you're eating, and while you're building a milk replacer, and while you're exercising, and you're building in a greenhouse and learning you're doing 10,000 hours at the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the time that you're focusing on that project, I hate time blocking, but it's kind of a time blocking thing. Our conversation here, the only thing we're doing in this hour or so is talking and thinking.
Yeah. Yes.
That's it. And this is part of the 10,000 hours. And if we do this 1 hour a week, when are we going to get excellence at this? 1 hour a week.
It's
So
years.
you got 52 hours a year. So what's 10,000
20
divided
years?
by 52? 192 years. 200 years.
Well, 192 years is all you're talking about.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Ah.
Once a week. If we do this once a week, and this is our
We'll get
10,000
good
hours.
someday. Well, okay, so you're discounting the all the work that I put in between.
Yeah, you got 5 more hours. So each episode we invest 10 hours into, let's say.
Yeah,
Would it be
and
10?
then you've got all of the research, all of the reading that you do that helps.
Okay,
and
so
all
let's
of the
call 10 hours
podcasts
per
and
episode.
videos that
So that's 520 a year. 10,000 divided by 520 is 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, that's much more reasonable. I like that.
Okay, instead of 200. So
In 20 years, we'll be experts at this. We'll have mastered the podcast.
right. And then we can move on to something else after 20 years. And who's been doing podcasting for 20 years? How long has Joe Rogan been a podcaster?
Not very long. Adam Carolla, I think, is one of the first that I recall.
Gosh, when did he start? I don't see that.
Radio shows is where it kind of started. Everything
2009.
started with
He started
radio
in 2009. So Joe Rogan started recording in 2009. Jordan Peterson started recording in the 80s. I mean, he's got stuff in there from the 80s. He's been working on that for
those are his
40 years.
recordings of his lectures, right?
College lectures, yeah. And it's interesting. His early college lectures sounds exactly the same as he does now. He's talking about exactly the same things. He's been on the same avenue for 40 years. Joe Rogan from 2009. So what is that? 15 years? 15 years.
Yeah.
He's almost perfect. Well, they say he's got 6,500 hours of podcast runtime. That's what the model says here. 6,500 hours of recorded time. And if you count, we're 10xing that for ours. So he's put 65,000 hours into this. He's 6 times competent at what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Are we to the summary part yet? The key points of this, we should all be reaching for competency. And is there objectively anything that everyone needs to be competent in? I mean, I know that answer will vary depending on your political affiliation or your religious affiliation. So objectively is what I'm looking for.
Diversity, inclusion, and equity. If you include those type things that hopefully are dying out, if they die out, that's good. If they don't, you still have to include people. But in regard
Yeah.
to that, competence,
In a self-centered way, perhaps everyone needs to be competent in being happy, right?
they'd be happier if they were.
So they would be, but the world would be a better place. Like if people were less upset about things, I mean, kind of though, because you have to be upset about something to want to change something.
We've talked about that. You have to, in a fleeting thing like a leaf floating down the river, you've got to recognize the upset, but you don't have to wallow in it. You don't have to sit in it. You don't have to stay upset. There are people who stay upset and they live in a miserable life and they're in misery the whole time because they're just upset all the time. So that's not a competent. Maybe they're competent in being upset.
Uh-huh.
Is that a valid way to live?
Yeah, well, and if you're upset and you're a victim, then that's the worst way, because you're just upset about everything and there's nothing anyone can do about it, nothing you can do about it. My life is out of my control, But if you're upset and you recognize that you have the power to make things different, you're not a victim, then you change it and you become happy. I think for social change to happen, like Martin Luther King, he had to be upset about something long enough that he wanted to do something. Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah, he wanted to make a change. He had to be upset about it long enough that he started that whole thing.
Well, he participated in the civil rights movement and promoted it and pushed it and encouraged it.
Yeah, he couldn't see the thing he was mad about and then just be like, well, that's life. I'm going to be happy no matter what,
And he probably was happy no matter what, but he did have a passion to work for. So you have a passion to work for, like accepting mediocrity. He probably accepted the fact that people weren't listening to him or that they were throwing rocks at him or whatever. And, you accept that and you have to move on, or that the dogs were sicked on him. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
That you still have to move forward in your passionate venture. I mean, what you're after, what you're trying to accomplish. Unless you're not trying to accomplish anything. And we were talking to those people that are skating or floating through life and just not trying to accomplish anything. They don't have to be happy. So you ask the question, kind of what are we obligated to do? What should we all do? What should everyone do? So what's our obligation? The Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal with certain inalienable rights. So do we have to operate within those rights? Is that our requirement? Are we required to pay attention to the rights of others, to live so that they, for other people, so you're not infringing on someone else's rights?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have to be competent enough to know what those rights are. Maybe that's it.
Yeah. That competent in the rights that you have and recognizing that everyone else also has those rights.
Right. And that you're not going to infringe on the rights of others. Being aware enough, and that's part of society operating appropriately, is you can't have someone going along just killing people because they feel like it. It's
Right.
just, I have a sword, I'm going to use it.
So in addition to competency, you have to also believe that the rights are rights and not just some law that somebody
Not
made
just
up.
myths, not just mythology.
Yeah.
That there are inalienable rights, unalienable rights, inalienable rights that can't be separated from people. And that's just one document that said it that way and said what it is. Yeah, I brought that up. That was one thing that Adler said in his book in regard to what reading. Starting with paragraph 3 of the Declaration of Independence, it says these are the reasons why we feel like we need to do this. And it says the next 8 paragraphs all the way to the end, and including the part that say, to this we pledge our sacred honor. That's a phrase. It's kind of a trite phrase at the end. But all of that, he says, doesn't really deserve to be read it's elementary reading is all it is. You're just maybe listing out the points. But the first two paragraphs, all men are created equal, inalienable rights, pursuit of happiness, there's topics in there, there's points in there that need a lifetime of discussion, most likely. Said that you need to really dig into and understand. The first two paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence are where its meat is. That's what you read. So it's not that you understand everything about the document, but you understand stuff about the first part.
The Federalist Papers are just letters that led up to the independence of the country, right?
Yeah, creating the Constitution of the United States. So that's what the Federalist Papers are, promoting how to develop the Constitution, whether we're going to be what it was under the Articles of Confederation, a confederacy, or a country with a constitution, I guess, a democracy. Not a democracy, then a republic, and not a monarchy. It was the discussion promoting the Constitution, and it was just the conversation. It was held in public, so it was like that's higher than fourth grade reading. That's like 10th grade or college level writing, because they're writing on their scale,
on their level. Yeah.
And they're not trying to dumb it down for everyone to read, but it was put in the papers for everyone to read. So maybe they were more literate. The people reading papers were more literate in that day.
Or maybe nobody read it. They looked at it and they're like, this is not for me.
Good thing those people are doing that, because I'm not going to care. I don't care what George Hamilton's doing or Madison.
Yeah.
But and it's hard to understand their writings, like any of the philosophers, Marcus Aurelius and Emerson. Their writings are complicated. I mean, they use some words you don't know that are new and different, but even if they're not using words that you don't understand, they're phrasing it in ways that you have to think about it to get the meaning out of it. Common hours.
But the more that you read difficult literature, the better you'll get at understanding it, and it won't be difficult anymore. It'll be, for you, easy to understand. You could probably read through it as fast as you read through Dogman and understand what they're talking about, because you have the context. Like, the more you read, the more you know, right?
Yeah. And you can understand the context of how they're writing it. So, you find out if you enter a paragraph and you're lost from the first words in the paragraph, there's no way you're going to understand anything in the paragraph. That if you can get the direction that the writer's going, and you can identify what the context is that he's talking about, then you can see the points as it's rolling through, and you can't just read words and with your mind. And that's one thing he talks about too, is reading isn't how fast you read the words. It's how your mind works. Your mind has to be there. You have to act. That's why he talks about active and directive, active and the other word, demanding reading. You're demanding the attention of your mind. It takes full attention in order to really read. We can't read while you're listening to the TV or something else. Reading needs to be where your mind is. If your mind's in it, then you'll comprehend as you're reading through the paragraph. And you won't get lost. You won't daydream. You won't float off here or there, because that's where you're focused. You're focused on that.
Yeah. Yeah, comprehension. Your comprehension level needs to be higher, but the way to do that is to focus in.
Like how people say, back to a religious topic, you read the scriptures every day. Read the Bible every day, or the scriptures, the Book of Mormon. Every day you're going to get into or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita, whatever you read. If you're just reading the words, you want to read the Book of Mormon every day. At least read a verse. But if you're just reading words on the verse, doesn't mean a thing to you.
Yeah.
You got nothing out of it. You didn't think about it. You didn't comprehend it. You didn't contemplate it. If you didn't spend any time with it, so you picked it up and read it, that got you to an elementary step on it. You read some words, but unless you internalize it or go to an analytical standpoint of saying, what did it say? Is it true? Is what I read accurate? And what does it mean to me? What does it mean to the world? What does it mean anywhere? You got to ask those questions. What does it mean?
That reading versus studying, right?
Yeah. And you study, and you don't need to study a whole lot. I mean, you can study 5 words or 1 word. You can study competence. That's plenty of reading to understand.
Yeah.
Everything that competence implies. I mean, that question, we've been talking about, what does it imply? It implies more than you can talk about. More than 400 words. 400 pages of a book you could write.
Yeah.
Competence implies a whole lot.
Yeah. And imply is a subjective word. It could mean more to one person than it could mean to another based on their competency.
Right. Or based on their desires or what they want. I mean, someone who's floating through life doesn't care what competence implies. It doesn't imply anything to me.
Yeah.
I'm okay being average. I'm average. I don't want to think
As long as
about,
no one accuses them of being incompetent.
yeah. And go ahead. I'm an idiot. They'll be happy to be idiots. I'm an average idiot. The village idiot. And don't ask me how to spell it. I'm not going to spell anything that's beyond me. Those people that go to school spell things. I might even say the word wrong. So, and they don't care if they say the word wrong or right or anything.
Yeah.
So we should gain in competence. Everyone should. Well, and I think really everyone does in the avenues that they're happy doing so. It's where you set your goals and your desires and your focus, what you're going to work on next.
Right. Right. What are you right now gaining competency in besides vibrato on the violin?
Libretto on the violin. Well, yeah, that's one of those things I looked at once in the last, probably in 4 years. I've thought of it once recently.
Okay.
So that's why I brought it up. Everything.
Everything. You can't just pick one because it's everything. Your whole life is competency.
Well, in my mind, I've got a Christmas gift that I was identified to, and I believe I'm going to have to create something
for our Secret Santa exchange.
I'm gonna have to weld something. So
okay.
I'm thinking on welding something together.
Do you know how to weld?
I've got a welder and I've done it before.
Step 1, acquire a welder.
So there we go. I've got a level of competence with that. I can make it. I don't know that I can make it look pretty, but it doesn't need to look pretty. It's going to be a welded gift.
Okay.
So I think it will work, and that's what I'm working on to get that level. First, I've got to find the items to weld together, and then figure out how to weld them together.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I think it'll be cool.
Okay.
And based on my my information, I believe it will be appreciated. So
yeah, that survey has been really helpful for me too.
Yeah.
Choosing a gift for my secret child.
Yeah. So I have to find out. Yeah, we got the information that we have, and so that's one thing I'm going to work on competence on, is seeing if I can get the machine to run and weld at least enough to put something together.
Right.
And then I'm considering whether I want to paint it, or there's things that you got to do. I've got spray paint, got all kinds of spray paint. I could spray paint it.
Yeah, as long as you don't care what color it is.
Right. I could probably even find the color I want it to be. Let's see, what other competencies, like reading. I am gaining a lot in reading right now. Speed reading courses. I mean, I've thought about speed reading for a long time, trying to figure out what that is, how you do that. And the comprehension is important, but from what he says with this, you can read words fast, you can speed read, and he's got the trick of doing it. You make your eye go faster, your brain will catch up. If you make your eye go faster across the page, your brain will catch up, and then you'll gain a competency in that speed of reading through. And it's important maybe to do that if you're scanning. And that's what I had this one guy I was talking to that was a speed reader. He'd read, 1,000 pages an hour. And he would go through it because he knew what he was looking for, and he could scan the whole page. He didn't voice anything. He scanned the whole page and saw it. He saw everything on the page, and he was looking for specific things. So he said, when I'm doing that, when I'm proofreading, I can look for specific things and it's easy. I can run that through and he's very accurate with it
Yeah.
because you know what you're looking for. So you can get your reading to be that fast, to be really fast, but that's not good reading. It's not how to read. You've got to be able to slow down and analyze when it's time to analyze, and then take all of the time you need to go back through that sentence again and again and make sure that you understand the connection between that sentence and the one before, the paragraph. And you're thinking about it. You're engaging your thinking, your brain, and that's reading.
Right. That's reading.
So I'm learning all of that. And syntopical, that's what I love about reading. Anyway, that's what I've always loved about reading, is connecting it to the next work, putting these two things together.
Right.
And,
yeah.
but you feel like increasing competence in everything you do? Let me ask it this way. Is there anything that you are doing that you don't want to increase your competence at?
Yes, loading the dishwasher. I have mastered that, so I am not going to get any better at that. I'm not looking for any information on how to load the dishwasher better. That's where it's at. I know that I'm doing it the best way possible.
So it's black and white. You got to a point that you know that there's nothing else.
Right.
Your way is the right way. Every other way is wrong.
No, I wasn't raised that way. I did have to work to get.
Yeah, you got to the point
know.
that you got. So you get to your level of competence.
Yeah.
And now, if I tell you that all the dishes have to be facing the center, is that the way you do it?
Nope.
No. So if I tell you that and say that's the best way that dishwashers work, is everything has to face the center.
Right.
What does that mean to you?
That means you're wrong.
You're wrong.
That's not how, because the way the dishwasher is built, it's built to throw water from all directions as long as the dishes are facing down.
So you have a justification for the way you're doing it.
Well, of course I do. That's
justifying
you have a
it.
Justification for the way you do your things too.
All right. No, I believe that you would still make an adjustment on the way you do the dishwasher. You think that you're at the apex of your dishwasher life. But I bet if we talk in 2 years, if we still know each other in 2 years, you will have changed something. You will have changed something in your dishwasher loading characteristics.
Okay. So let me ask you, how do you face drinking glasses towards the center? How do you do that? Do you lay them all on its side?
No.
I think facing down is more important than facing to the center. We face all of our plates to one side as long as they're all facing the same direction, because if they're faced to each other, then they kind of close up and
like bowls.
the water can't flow. And silverware can go up or down. Doesn't matter, but I prefer up so that I can see before I pull it out whether it's clean or not, whether it got clean or not. So that's the best way, is up. So you
knives
can see.
You have to place down, right?
Sharp knives, but I don't put sharp knives in the dishwasher because the dishwasher is too abrasive for the sharp edge. So I hand wash the sharp knives. The butter knives face up.
Okay, see? You got peculiarities in that.
I know.
I don't think that I will change my dishwashing strategy to not include sharp knives. I'm going to let them just be washed in the dishwasher.
That's fine. So seriously though, is there anything that really matters in life that I am fine with my competency level in? Is that really your question?
Yeah. Is there anything you can imagine that you wouldn't want, even serious, not serious?
Okay.
If you had the chance to increase your competency, you would not take it.
No. I think if I had the chance, the opportunity to increase competency in anything, I probably would take it. Except exercise. Don't want
Exercise?
Just kidding. Probably if I had the chance and it was easy enough, then I would increase my competency in exercising, but it's not easy enough yet.
That's okay. And competence and the choice to increase competence has to deal with focus. You can't focus on very many things at a time. We
Right.
talked about you're doing a lot of things during a day, and you're gaining 10,000 hours worth of competency in quite a number of things, 20 or 40 things. But you can't do that in 5,000 things. You've got a limit of what you can actually focus on. That's
Right.
why I haven't picked up a violin for 4 or 5 years, because it's just not that thing that I can focus on right now. There's no reason for me to focus on that competence. I thought about it the other day, and I know that I can still pick up a pen and do the practice that she told me is what you do. What do they teach kids to start learning that vibrato? So I can do that with a pen. I'll still do that for a number of years, but it may be 4 or 5 more years before I pick up a violin, just because
Yeah.
my focus doesn't say that's the primary thing.
Right. That's not your priority. That's not your 1 out of 25 things.
Yeah. So it's the 25. It's part of that 25 that I'm going to ignore completely.
Yeah.
Not even think about. And that little thing we talked about, spinning a pen around your thumb, I probably will
That's
not
not
work
even
on that.
Right.
It's not
Right.
something that I really want to do.
Yeah. So really it all comes down to what your priorities are.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
I were sitting in a convention that I had to sit for 2 hours on this lecture or whatever, and I was just sitting there and I had my pen, I might practice it. I might try to figure out how to get that to spin around or twirl a pen. I imagine that's where people learned it, is they were sitting in boring lectures.
Yeah. Or public school classes.
Public school class, yeah. Or like learning how to juggle. That'd be something we could gain more competence in. But where's the focus on that? When should it be done? I don't know.
When should you learn how to juggle?
Right.
Let's see, when would I learn how to juggle? If I entered a game show competition where I knew I was good at one thing that you had to do, but then also I had to learn how to be good at juggling too, then I probably would. I know I can learn how to juggle. I can't juggle yet, but I know I can if I practiced enough.
And what would bring it to the focus? What would bring that into your focus so that you could ignore other things and focus on that? That's what you talk about. That's where you're going to build your competence. Competence is in that thing that you can bring to your focus.
Yeah.
It's potential that one of your children will require you to bring that focus together. That could happen.
Yeah. To learn how to juggle.
Let's say they said, I want to know how to juggle, and I saw this, and we got to do this. You would do it with them, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend whose husband became a black belt in karate because his son wanted to do that.
Want to do karate, yeah.
He had no desire to do it before his son was like, I'm going to do karate. And so they did it together and he became a black belt.
Right. So you do it because you're invited by someone that it's in your primary circle of people, your tier 1 or some close friend, someone you want to maintain a close relationship with. You'll do it with them if they have the idea, and it will become your idea. Like you were talking about, if someone wants you to change and wants you to learn how to juggle or be a black belt karate, you're not going to do it because they want to do it, but you're going to get yourself to want to do it. That's when you're going to do it. It's when you want to do it, when you bring your focus to that level. So maybe that's the summary, I think, of competence that I want to end on. That you can become competent in anything that you're willing to take focus on. You're going to be happy focusing on long enough to do it.
Yeah, no matter what your mental capacities are.
Right.
Like even if you were born with limited capacity, maybe your competency level may be less than someone else, but you still can become competent to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. More competent
than you are now.
There's someone like, Stephen Hawking, famously, who kept his brain active, though he couldn't move his body after he was like 20 when he developed that disease. So he developed whatever the disease was that took him down, but he stayed preeminent on the world, a highly competent individual, writing books and everything. And he continued to advance, but he didn't advance physically because he was limited in that. He was retarded in the physical capacity.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop his competence in every other area of life, living.
Right. Right. In everything that he put his focus toward.
Yeah. Everything he could still do. And maybe he even gained some competence from the time that, the ability to use the materials around him to communicate. Certainly I don't know what he developed. He might have developed some of the things that are used for communication for someone in that status.
Yeah. Possible.
You got someone like Dennis Prager. You hear what's happening to him right now?
No.
That he fell in the shower. I just found out it was in the shower a while ago. About 2 weeks ago, he fell in the shower and cracked his head, cracked his neck. And so he had to be on a breathing tube for a while. He wasn't able to do anything. He's still in the hospital. 2 weeks later, it's going to be a long recovery, they say. If he gets back his full capacities, they're not sure that he's going to get everything back. But his brain is fully there. So people who have talked with him say he's fully coherent.
He's aware of
his family
everything.
His office has been talking about what's going on with him. And
who is this guy? I don't know
Dennis Prager?
who Dennis Prager is.
Prager University. He is I don't know, he's part of the Jordan Peterson's crew, not crew, but contemporary.
His colleagues. Okay.
His colleagues, as far as that intelligent level. He's fairly well known in the conservative arenas, I guess. Someone on your liberal side, you may not ever hear about him.
I'm too skeptical to know about him.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a change, but developing competence back. Maybe he'll have the competence again to walk. And he did just start talking. It was probably a few days ago. They said he's voiced his first words again, but his brain is fully there. He's comprehending everything that's going on. So it's just his body has to get back to work again through his neck, through the spinal cord injury, whatever it was that created the disconnect. It's got to heal, and may take a while, and it may not completely come back, like Christopher Reeves we talked about, who didn't get anything back, but his brain was still there. Christopher Reeves still operated.
Yeah. Well, this was a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad that you wrote that word down so that we could talk about it.
One word, we got to competence. So choose what you focus on and competence. Develop competence where you focus. And I think everything we do every day has to be for that purpose of increasing competence. There's no reason to do something to try to lose competence. You want to increase competence in everything you do.
Okay. Very good. Do you know what we're planning on talking about next week?
Dualism.
Black and white? Is that?
Yeah, well.
Is that what dualism is?
And maybe it's dualism in relation to the three-body problem.
Okay. I'll need to do some research on that.
Dualism and why dualism exists. And that's just a continuum. That everything exists on a continuum. Black and white, left and right, up, down.
That will be a very interesting conversation too, I think.
So we start with dualism. Now that came from a brother that I don't know that he'll want to be invited in or not.
Yeah. Maybe we can have him come anyway.
So we'll see. I'll talk with him again.
Okay. I've got to go. I'm out of time.
Okay.
So
you got to go.
Thank you for talking.
We'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. We'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts. Please continue the conversation with us at doyouhaveaminuteconversations@gmail.com. Your participation means the world to us, and we look forward to having more exciting conversations with you in the future. Take care now.